What's up, guys? So the two new DLC characters, Android 17 and Cooler, have been out for about a week, and I thought now would be a good time to, with what we know so far, talk about which one of these two characters is stronger, which do I think has more competitive potential, and which do I think is more worth your money. So we're going to start out talking about 17. Let's go over some of his pros and cons here. We'll start with the pros. I think probably the biggest thing he has going for him is strong mix-ups and block strings. So he's obviously got a low hitting down light, and he's got this extra low here with down forward heavy. So he can actually do 4 lows in a row, which is very rare. The only other characters that can really do this are like Cell and maybe Nappa. Can Nappa do this? But anyway, most characters can't. So he makes you block low in a way that most characters cannot do, so his high-low is very good for that reason. He's also got mix-ups with, you know, the Rekka attack. He can high-low with that. He can bait you with the barrier and stuff like that. He can bounce off the wall. So his mix-up game is very strong. One of the best mix-up games in the game, I would say. So once he gets in on you, it's very hard to get him off. You know, he can apply assist pressure to keep you blocking and mix you up pretty much all day. So he can be a very hard character to deal with once he has you blocking. Next up, his next pro, I would say, is high damage off of clean hits. So if Android 17 mixes you up and, you know, gets that clean hit on you, you are probably going to be taking a lot of damage. Especially with assists involved, and if you have the corner, or if he has, you know, the projectiles charged, he can just do a ton of damage in those clean hit situations off of, you know, these lows that he has and stuff like that. So in those situations, he is able to do a ton of damage. And then third, another big pro I want to talk about that I haven't seen a lot of people discussing is that he has an invincible air level 1 super. Not a lot of characters have invincible level 1s. Usually it's only their level 3 is invincible. Bardock is another example of a character with an invincible level 1. So, you know, like in a lot of situations, like if they snap you out and are, you know, going for a mix-up on incoming, you know, Android 17, he can get out of a lot of those situations using this invincible level 1 to, you know, just go through whatever attacks the opponent's trying to do. So it's pretty good for that. It can also go through, you know, beams and stuff from full screen. You can call the opponent out and just blast through and get him. So that's really useful. So don't underrate that super. It does make a big difference, actually. It's pretty nice to have, and it's a nice little addition to his toolkit. So now moving on to Android 17's cons, I think the biggest one that most people are talking about is his weak neutral. He doesn't have any really good projectiles other than the one that he has to charge up first. So the fact that you have to do this whole charge up animation just to be able to do it once is kind of a bummer. So he doesn't have any projectiles to help his neutral. And some of his normals are just so stubby. His stand medium and his down forward heavy are like the two good ones. But other than that, you know, if he's like at this range, it's just really awkward for him. You know, even his down heavy is quite stubby. So he can struggle a little bit, especially against characters with really big normals. You know, guys like Trunks, Goku Black, Cell. Characters like that just outrange him. Adult Gohan is another one. They just outrange him so well, it can be really hard for Android 17 to compete just because it's hard for him to actually get in and close the distance in a way that lets him start up his mix-up game. Speaking of his mix-up game, another issue I want to talk about with 17 is that a lot of his mix-ups are, the risk-reward is not quite there for them to be worth it. So like this wall bounce attack, it can definitely catch people off guard, and it's nice like if you have an assist covering you, you know, you can use that to sort of set up this wall jump, and that can be handy. But at the end of the day, is it like really worth it? Is it really worth doing stuff like this when really you get a much cleaner mix-up just by doing like, you know, jump in with an air dash and then you can do 1 high into low or 2 highs into low or like an empty jump low, and the fact that he has extra lows there at the end of his strings, like to me those just seem like more robust mix-ups, and they're generally like pure 50-50s in terms of the opponent having to guess whether it's going to be high or low. So isn't that better than doing something like this, you know, where the opponent has the ability to down heavy you? You're kind of putting yourself into a guessing game with this. Again, you can use an assist to keep yourself safe, but a lot of times the assist would make your other mix-ups better in a way that, you know, you would rather just do that. Like, you'd rather just do, you know, something like this, using the assist to cover that kind of mix-up, and it's a little bit more clean. And like I was mentioning, he only really gets good damage off of clean hits. If you're getting, like, stuff like this, you know, if you're hitting them with your Rekka, he just doesn't get that much damage because it does scale the follow-up combo a lot. So if you're kind of hoping that the enemy, you know, if you're doing this, trying to mix up the enemy, first of all, you either need to use Vanish or an assist to combo off it. And then when you do, you're getting, like, no damage. And unless he has his projectile charged, you can't even get a hard knockdown afterwards. So definitely, like, a lot of these canned mix-ups that he has, I don't really think are that effective. I think you're generally better off just taking advantage of his normal mix-ups rather than going for, you know, some shenanigans and nonsense with these moves that he have that, you know, they don't necessarily seem that worth it to me. And then finally, one more con is just his assist. His assist is not the worst assist in the game, but it's generally pretty so-so. You know, it's very, very slow. And he can be hit out of it fairly easily. The barrier aspect doesn't start up until pretty late in the animation. So you can't really use it defensively that effectively because he will get hit out of it. And of course, if you're trying to use it in block strings or something, the fact that it takes so long to come out is not great. And then mid-screen, you know, it bounces them like full screen, so it's really, really hard to use for combo extensions outside of the corner. In the corner, it's not too bad, but, you know, it's still not amazing. I would say he definitely has a below-average assist. Again, probably not, like, bottom 3 assists in the game, but not a great one. So generally, you're going to always be running him in the first position on a team. Also because he takes advantage of assists very well. So in terms of team composition, I think he's kind of a limited character. So now we've covered some of 17's pros and cons. Let's talk about Cooler's pros and cons as well. Cooler is kind of the opposite in a lot of ways. One of Cooler's biggest strengths is his great neutral. You know, he's got these massive normals that he can confirm off of from really far away. So, you know, in a lot of situations, like if the opponent is trying to do like jump back super dash or something, you can just clip them with his jump medium from really far away. And it's pretty awesome. It's like one of the best parts of playing the character is just that you always have this threat from like really far away of your down medium and your jump medium. These just catch people all the time. It happens all the time in matches. He's also got his down forward heavy. This thing is actually crazy. Like, you cannot really be hit out of this by a projectile. It's like frame 1 projectile invincible. So this thing is just wild for getting past projectiles and beams and stuff like that. That really helps out his neutral. And don't neglect the fact that he has some pretty good projectiles as well. He's got this thing, which is like a full screen low. He's got the beam, which he can do in the air on the ground. Obviously, one of the slowest beams in the game, but don't forget that he has this. It comes up a lot, and it does kind of shore up his neutral, and overall make him one of the better neutral characters in the game. Like, he's just good at covering the screen, at putting out big hitboxes that the opponent does not want to get hit by. Cooler's second biggest strength, I would say, is his invincible knee, the invincible dragon punch. This thing is so nuts. Like, it goes through absolutely everything. You cannot hit him out of it at all. If he is the point character, it's 100% invincible. He cannot be hit out of it. And it's also a really good assist as well. This actually does have vulnerable frames as an assist. You can see if it's like exactly perfect timing, they can hit him out of the first frame of the startup. But anything past that, he just blasts through and he hits the opponent. It's also not bad at all for combo extension. You can pretty easily use this for some nice little combo extensions. It's not amazing for it, but it does work. And obviously, similarly, you know, block strings, it can be good for forcing the opponent to block and use that. So, kind of the opposite of 17, who has one of the least good assists, I would say, a very below average assist. I think Cooler has a very above average assist. Not one of like the top 5 or 6 assists in the game, but not too far off. It's a very, very good assist. Don't sleep on this thing. And third, another nice benefit of playing Cooler is that his damage is just generally high. It's nothing insane, but he is a very, like, most of the time, if you hit the opponent, you're gonna make them hurt for it, you know? And a lot of this is because a lot of his combos do start with mediums. So, like, a lot of times you are going to be starting your combo with a down medium or a jumping medium. And mediums scale combos less than lights. So, like, if you start a combo like this, it's going to scale the follow-up damage. So you can see I got 3100 there. If you start it with a medium, it's going to do a lot more. See, 4100. So, since his mediums are a lot of his party starter type moves, you are going to be getting a lot of damage off those. And, you know, once you get assists involved and stuff, he can start doing some really crazy stuff. Like, look, nearly 60% for 1 meter. And that's just the beginning. Like, once you start incorporating sparking or, you know, vanish, stuff like that, he can really start doing some pretty insane damage. So, kind of the opposite of 17. Again, you know, 17 does good damage off clean hits, but off of, like, a lot of his canned mix-up situations or off of stray hits. Like, if you get a vanish, 17 is not going to be doing very much damage. But Cooler, on the other hand, he can do a lot of damage in any of those situations. Even off of, you know, a vanish situation like this. He just ends up doing, like, good damage in any of these situations. So that's another really big benefit of playing Cooler. But now let's talk about some of Cooler's downsides. I think obviously the biggest one is that he has pretty so-so mix-ups. His downlight does not hit low. And he does not have a command throw or anything like Broly or Android 16, the other really, like, big body characters in the game. He does not have a command throw. So really, all your mix-ups are going to be coming off of his forward heavy, which is a low. So it's kind of nice that he can do like this. You know, 2 lows in a row is, like, fine. And then he has this, which is also a low. So it's okay. His mix-ups aren't as bad as maybe someone like Super Saiyan Goku, who, you know, really his only mix-up is like this terrible overhead move that you can just be down heavied out of. Cooler doesn't really have that bad of mix-ups because he does have these extra lows, but they're not great. They're definitely not anywhere close to Android 17. As I touched on earlier, another flaw is his so-so projectiles. Like, it's nice that he has them, but they are not really that safe. Like, the opponent can just super dash over this one pretty easily, so it's not that great in neutral. It's mostly just good for mix-ups, but at neutral they can get right over it. And then a lot of times, you know, if you're, like, trying to beam them, you'll just get hit by their beam first because his is so slow. So I know I mentioned these as part of his pros, and I do think they are a little bit, you know, Android 17 doesn't have bad projectiles because he doesn't have, like, any projectiles, really. He doesn't have, like, a beam. He doesn't have those options other than this thing, which, again, you have to have this charge, which is not an insignificant downside. You know, it's a big downside that you can only do this move if you have it charged. So it's nice that Cooler has these full-screen projectiles at all, but they are some of the worst beams in the game, for sure. And another one of Cooler's big downsides, I think, is that his level 3s are pretty situational. So obviously his ground level 3 is a counter, so you can't combo into his ground level 3 at all. You can only use it as a counter. And it is nice for that, you know, it can stop people pressing buttons, it can get you out of your opponent's safe jump situations, which is kind of nice. But a lot of times, I feel like you would prefer just to have a good solid level 3 that you can just combo into, you know, in a lot of situations that gets you a mix-up. A lot of times that's nicer, because if you have the threat of a level 3 that leads into a good mix-up, like a lot of characters have, whenever you have 3 meters, the opponent has to be really scared of getting hit, because they're going to be in big trouble when that happens. But Cooler, you know, obviously he can't use his ground level 3 for that purpose, and his air level 3 is a little bit weird. Like, you can combo it in situations like this, you can combo into it fairly easily, but you're not going to be doing a lot of damage doing so. So in situations like where you get a launcher, usually you're either going to need to spend a meter, because you can't combo into it like that, meterless. You're usually going to have to spend a meter for the heavy version of his dive kick. That way you can go into his air level 3, or you're going to need an assist or something like that. So His air level 3 is not terrible, but it's not that great for a lot of combo situations. And also, like, in a lot of Z-change situations, you know, you're not going to be able to Z-change into his level 3 very easily at all. Just because of that limited range, you know, there's going to be a lot of characters that actually struggle to Z-change into Cooler level 3. So that's a downside as well. So obviously he does have some upsides of his level 3. The fact that it's a throw, the fact that on the ground it's a counter. You know, that can be nice, but there are definitely a lot of situations you're going to find yourself in where you get a hit and you're just like, man, I just wish that I had a normal, good level 3 that I can combo into, you know, like all the other characters do, and get a nice little 50-50 mix-up afterwards. You know, like Android 17 can do that. He can just go straight into his ground level 3 and get a nice little 50-50. So it's nice having the option to do that pretty much off of any hit, and Cooler doesn't really have that option. So I've covered the pros and cons for both characters, and I want to give a disclaimer that it's still very early. These characters have not been out for very long, so it's entirely possible that I'm going to end up just way off and there's going to be some new tech discovered. The tournament scene could blow up these characters in a way that I'm not anticipating. But for now, based on my experience so far, I want to give you my rating on who I think is better. And I'm giving it to my boy Cooler. I think Cooler does have the advantage of being easier to play. When a game or a character is new, the easier characters tend to feel stronger than the hard characters, and Android 17 is definitely a hard character. But I just think that Cooler's all-around strengths, his high damage in most situations, his good neutral, I just think that that is enough to take him over the top. Plus, I think Cooler can be played in multiple positions on a team. Because his assist, I do think, is very good. Cooler can definitely be played second or even third on a team, which I don't think you're going to be doing with 17. I think 17 relies on assists so much, and his assist is weak enough that really he's a first slot only character. And if you compare him to some of the other really powerful first slot characters, you know, like Cell, Adult Gohan, Bardock, is he close to as good as them? I don't necessarily think he is. I think he's a fairly strong character, maybe even above average, but I don't think that he can quite compete with the real powerhouse rushdown characters that people tend to put in the first slot on their team. So that being said, I do think both characters are great. If either of these characters look cool to you and you're contemplating picking them up, I say go for it. Don't worry about, you know, if you think 17 looks appealing to you, don't not get him just because I said he's not as good as Cooler. He's still an awesome character that I think you can have a lot of fun with. But if you're just looking for purely what I think will be the more competitively relevant character, I would say it goes to Cooler. So that's going to be it for the video, guys. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think? Am I way off? Am I right on? Be sure to let me know down below. Be sure also to click either of the links here on screen to see more videos from me. You can click the subscribe button so that you never miss an upload, or you can click the Patreon link here to go to my Patreon and help support the channel. So that's going to be it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.